Yeah. All right. Well, good morning. June 28, 2022 special meeting of the Veterans Land Board will come to order. Pursuant to section 31.015 of the Texas Natural Resources Code, I'm chairing this meeting in the commissioner's absence as chief clerk of the General Land Office. The June 28, 2022 special meeting of the Veterans Land Board is being held in person at 1700 North Congress Avenue, Stephen F. Austin Building, and by video conference call as authorized under Texas Government Code section 551.125. Access to the meeting by members of the public was published in advance in the Texas Register in accordance with the Texas Open Meetings Act. Any member of the public who wishes to address the Veterans Land Board should indicate so at the start of the meeting or during any public comment period. And just as a brief housekeeping matter, the board secretary, Linda Quintanilla, was not able to attend today due to a family emergency. Therefore, I am appointing McKenzie to serve as temporary board for this special meeting. And our first item, we've got two items on the agenda today. Item number one is the management operation of the State Veterans Home in Houston, and item number two is a potential cemetery site in Lubbock. We're going to take those a little out of order. We're going to handle the potential Lubbock Cemetery first. One of the reasons for that is happy today to have Senator Perry, represents the Lubbock area, attending via Zoom. So wanted to take up docket item number two first so that we can have his input and get him to address the board on this. So we will take up item number two, and let me just open with saying, this is potential for locating the next state veteran cemetery. We've looked quite a bit around the state, and we have a motion in front of us today to potentially locate a state veteran cemetery in Lubbock. And one of the reasons we wanted to talk about why Lubbock and the veteran population there is Senator Perry has been a leading advocate for this, and talked to him for quite a while. This has been a long journey to get here. And so would like to hear from you, Senator, if you can hear us okay. And
yeah, I can hear y'all. Can y'all see me and hear me all right?
Very well. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
First of all, I want to say thank you to you guys for the consideration. I know that, there's always competing interests for these kind of projects around the state. I think Lubbock has been at the forefront of trying to make it come to fruition, working with the federal side of this and what that means, and working with the state, GLO, and their support, and Mark Haven's input. And you guys as a subcommittee has really, I think, propelled the conversation into possible, right? So we got word from the feds that, they would be open to a concept of a state cemetery that was different than what we had heard in the past 2 years. Something, I guess the message finally was communicated in a way they could get their heads around it. And then we've worked with GLO and kind of the conversation about, what does Lubbock look like in that? And I know there was some other cities that were in conversation, but Lubbock's the only one that's actually come up with a real piece of property with a real commitment from the city council and county commissioners to do that. And then as a legislator, I understand some of the nuances of some of the existing funding for the M&O side of that. And we're willing to have the conversation about going forward, what that might look like from a commitment from a local versus all state, and the running the risk of allocating funds. But the need is there. We're a hub. We're called the Hub City for a reason. We are a retail, medical, agricultural, scientific, educational, rehab, not only for just the South Plains and the area that we serve, the hub, the people that come through that city for different reasons, but Eastern New Mexico, Panhandle of Oklahoma, parts of Colorado. We are a large footprint for a large population that, if not for that hub concept, you would be 2 hours to the north to Amarillo, 2 hours to the south of Middle and Odessa range. So we really do fill a void in a population base for so many levels, and it just makes sense that the 21,000 plus veterans in that hub area would have a place to go to. And I think that as our state goes, it is veteran friendly we are, and as our populations are aging, I think we're down to the last World War II. Survivors are still with us, but very, very few. And we have the Vietnam era, the Korean War era, and all the different conflicts in the middle of that are just going to have a capacity, right? And so right now we may have capacity around the state, but wouldn't it be nice for those people to become home to their final resting places with their loved ones close by, that can have that honor and that reminder of their service at the community level. You know, those are community people. They came out of the schools there, the high schools there. They fought, and you know, they ultimately have to be placed somewhere for an eternity. And why not our area? Lubbock is committed. I guess that's the, if you look for a reason why Lubbock versus X, Lubbock has done the homework. Lubbock is in the application process. Lubbock has led that cause. Lubbock has got the things in place that they were told it needed to do. So I would say it from this way. You know, a lot of people can say they want things or are willing to do the homework to get there. Lubbock has committed to doing that. We've got a large group of advocacy. We lost one of the largest advocates to pancreatic cancer last year. Good man. He was one of those doggone bones in that veteran community. But we've got some veteran communities there, and we've got some stalwart Congressional Medal Award winners and some of the things out of the tech. We got some connections there. It only makes sense. And Texas Tech is a veteran community college, and they literally make veterans a priority in their school, and they recognize that for around the country. So it all adds up to the logical choice when you put in the mix that we actually have committed to what we needed to commit to get it done. So thank you for your consideration in this. I'll be glad to try to answer a question or two if you have any. If not, I've got another committee. I appreciate you moving me up to the top. It's like session during an interim, and that's never a good thing, but I'm more than happy to take a question or two.
We appreciate it, Senator Perry. And I know, are there any initial questions from the board? I know we're going to get into a full briefing with staff, but I didn't know if you had any questions while we have a moment.
I just want to commend Senator Perry for his involvement in this. It's I think I met you one time previously when some of us came through the Capitol, but you've obviously put a lot of work into this. You have a lot of pride and sponsorship for it, and thank you for being part of a very good idea. Appreciate you bringing it to completion.
I just set the pace that the location that's cited is prospectively going to be a Lake 7 and a Lake 6 for water source and recreational use. It's going to be in close proximity to that. I can't think of a more, you know, I've been to some of these and they're kind of out by themselves. You got to make an effort to be there. I think this one has the opportunity to highlight and make a very focal point of just natural. People are going to go by it or see it or be in close proximity to it. They're going to participate in that. So I'm really excited about the location, and that water source is on the map. It's on the Water Development Board's plans. It's in Lubbock as a future project that will happen in the next 20 years or so. So it really dovetails well, I think, with what we want our veteran cemeteries to have access to, and people to actually know and pay their respects through that by being just a point that people are going to go to naturally. So I'm excited about it. Thank you guys for your efforts. I'm going to get over to a finance committee. Any questions you come up with, Mark, you know how to get a hold of Catherine and just go down that road. And anything you need from the community, contact Catherine or me, and I will get my community engaged on the conversation for sure.
Yes, sir. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Catherine's going to sit in, I think. Y'all have a good day.
All right, too. Dr. Kelly, if you want to come up, I think we'll have Dr. Kelly kind of lay out the formal presentation of the item, and we can get into a further discussion.
Good morning, everyone. For the record, Dr. John Kelly, Deputy Director of the Texas State Veteran Cemetery Program. Staff recommends approval of the submission of a grant application to the National Cemetery Administration by 1 July 2022 for establishment of a new Texas State Veteran Cemetery in Lubbock, Texas, with final grant award acceptance and commencement of construction contingent on the VLB entering into an agreement with the municipal government, county government, or other local government entity or a combination of these entities for the management and operation of the cemetery, with such agreement limiting the VLB's annual expenditures and operational obligations to $1 million or less per VLB fiscal year. Subject to your questions.
I think one of there's a couple of key components in there when we talk about potentially locating this in Lubbock. I think one of the things that we discussed earlier is a lot of people say, I would like one of these, but we've never seen, we've convened the meeting to look at numbers, look at unserved veteran population. Lubbock is certainly within the top 3 in that community, but Lubbock has come forward They have dedicated land to the VLB, which is the largest first step. And they've also committed to operating this, and we will have a cap in place in the contract, so we have no worries of exceeding the VLB side on M&O as far as annual operations of this. So I just wanted to make sure we were clear on that. I didn't know, Mr. Moody, Mr. Scott, if y'all have any questions, any insights on this?
I'll go first. Anthony Vargas gave me a sort of a pre-brief on this and explained a lot of it. And then the memo is excellent. It's concise and contains a lot of information. I think it's a great idea. I have no problems with it. The only question that I have is because Lubbock is home to the third largest unserved veteran population, whether we have any efforts underway to have communications with Longview and Amarillo, which are the top two, for them to begin similar sorts of things so we can try to address the priorities in future years of additional unserved populations.
I think at this time, and Dr. Kelly, I don't know if you can chime in on this, if you have been approached by any members of the community from either of those areas, I would certainly be remiss if I didn't step in for my hometown of Longview, Texas, but I have not been contacted by any elected officials or representatives of the veterans community as far as advancing cemetery discussions. I think we would certainly be open to that and serving those populations with a similar type proposal of what we've seen from Lubbock today. But I have certainly not been approached in any way as far as advancing this discussion on future cemeteries.
Yes, sir. Neither of mine. Nothing heard.
I think the point I was going to try to make, though, is that not necessarily that they have approached anybody in the GLO or the Veterans Land Board yet, because they may not even be aware of the fact that other communities are doing this, but to reach out to them and just see if they have an interest, and you may be able to start the pot boiling a little bit to get folks involved with that. And then in future years, we might be able to have a repeat success with those communities as well.
Absolutely.
If you're ready, I'm happy to make a motion, but Grant probably has some questions as well, so we'll wait.
I was just going to ask about the agreement on the $1 million or less in O&M. Is that, has there been any kind of actual proposed language with the city or county there to date, or is that just going to be part of our initial approach with them?
I think that's part of just our initial discussions, because the way this works is from a timeline procedure is we have to get this application in by July 1. And I do want to thank our staff. They have really worked hard to get that, a lot of moving parts to get there. And then if the VA approves funding of this, then we will further enter into those negotiations with city, county to talk about management. But I think that was to allay some of the fears about ongoing costs. Is I think that was the motion before the board today, was to move to do this subject to the fact of the local community operates it and there will be a cap in place.
Okay, no, I appreciate that background, and we had fleshed out this conversation before about the challenges and operating costs. And I think there's solutions to that, whether that's partnering with the city and county, or whether ultimately that involves, changes at the legislature with the Veterans Commission. But I mean, at this point, I'm excited about taking advantage of the grant program. And, I appreciate John and Anthony working on this, and, I'm very supportive. So I don't know, Judd, do you have any other comments or questions?
No, I don't. It might be appropriate, Grant, for you to move the grant program thing. It's kind of fits.
So moved.
Seconded.
All right, there is a motion made, seconded, and carries unanimously. We will get the application filed with those conditions, and then we will wait and see what the VA does, see if they're going to fund this. So we will certainly keep the board members apprised as soon as we hear a decision on that. So thank you.
Thank
Dr.
you.
Kelly.
Thank you.
Item number one's an executive. session.
Okay, yes, now we will be moving to item number one. Item number one is, will be taken up in executive session. Veterans Land Board will enter into closed session pursuant to Chapter 551, Subchapter D, Texas Government Code, Section 551.071, for consultation with its attorneys regarding matters involving attorney-client privilege information and legal issues associated with item number one. Following the closed session, the board will reconvene in open session to complete the document. All right, the open session of the June 28, 2022 meeting of the Veterans Land Board will resume with item number one.
Good afternoon or good morning, members and Chairman John Berkeley, Deputy Director for Texas Veterans Home. This item is for consideration and possible action on the contract for the management and operations of the Richard A. Anderson Texas State Veterans Home in Houston, Texas. As discussed in executive session and subject to successful negotiations, General Land Office and Veterans Land Board staff recommends that the board approve the award of the management and operations agreement for the Richard A. Anderson Texas State Veterans Home in Houston to the respondent for the competitive request for proposal that has been evaluated and determined to be being able to provide the best value for the state based on a balance of relevant factors, including but not without limitation, past performance and comparable engagements, proposed methodology for the management and operations, proposed methodology for personnel and staffing, proposed methodology for maintenance and repairs, proposed methodology for nutritional and dining needs, overall responsiveness, clarity, and organization of the solicitation responses, and reasonableness of the proposed cost. On January 7, 2022, Veterans Land Board posted and made accessible to the public a request for proposals for the management and operation of the Houston home on the Texas Comptroller's electronic state business daily website. The RFP stated a vendor proposal submission deadline of February 4th, 2022. 3 proposals were received. An evaluation committee comprising General Land Office and Veterans Land Board staff was formed, and the proposals were evaluated and scored in accordance with the criteria stated in the RFP. Texas VSI LLC received the highest score and is selected by the evaluation committee to be presented to the board and with the staff recommendation for contract award subject to negotiation. The effective date of the awarded contract will be September 1st, 2022. The contract is for a 3-year period expiring August 31st, 2025, with the option to renew for an additional 3 years. Total estimated value for the initial 3-year contract is $40,072,059. Staff recommends the board approve the Houston Home Management and Operations contract to award Texas VSI LLC for a 3-year period with an optional 3-year extension. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Mr. Chair, I have no questions, but I'm happy to proceed with the motion.
No questions.
Okay, thank you. I just had one question. I know since we're looking, this is a sizable dollar amount as far as contract awarding. I want to talk a little bit, just briefly, on the procurement piece of this. We're looking not only at total dollar amount, but overall staffing levels, skilled nursing access, and just could you address that briefly as far as what goes into the evaluation?
And again, the criteria, this again, John Berkeley for record, the criteria that we look at primarily is their past experience in management and operations of similar product or projects, but primarily personnel and staffing, because that is where, that's the care that's delivered to the veterans. And we evaluate, we ask for proposals on current census at the home. We ask for a 90% evaluation of the staffing. And we look at also the design of the home. This home is much larger than many others. It's going to require more staff. They're all individual rooms. And so it's a different format than you would see at some of the other proposals. And it's going to require more staffing and at all levels. We're talking dietary, we're talking housekeeping, of course, nursing, and all of those services that have to be provided And as we went through and evaluated, two of the three were very similar. And were almost interchangeable, except for one being higher than the other in cost. One was an outlier, and it showed a very diminished staffing pattern that I don't think would well serve our veterans.
Thank you for that.
Do you have? And John, this is Jeff Gordon, General Counsel, and cost reasonableness is something else that you consider.
Sure. Yes, and we looked at that as well, because we have to, we're cognizant that it's our veterans that pay this cost and with their VA per diem. But when I look at it from the investment that's being made, the services that are going to be provided, and you evaluate that and break that down to a daily cost, an hourly cost, it actually was the best value for what we were proposing for this, or willing to accept for this proposal.
All right, thank you for that, Mr. Berkeley. Thank you, board, for kind of allowing us to delve into that. Are there any additional questions? Or are we ready for a motion?
I have no additional questions. I'm impressed with the thoroughness of the evaluation. I think our veterans in Houston are going to be well served, assuming that everything works out well, and I move that we adopt the staff recommendation.
I'll second.
Thank you. The motion is made, seconded, and carries unanimously to approve staff recommendation for item number 1. There being no further business before the Veterans Land Board, the meeting is hereby adjourned.